large amount of time annotating my books. I annotate most of the books that I read, and so many of you have been curious for an updated how I annotate my books video, because I think the last time that I did one was maybe 4 or even 5 years ago. I don't even know at this point, and so many things have changed, so many things have stayed the same. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down my annotation system. How do I color code? How do I choose which categories I tab and annotate? What do I actually write in my margins? And how do I underline so perfectly? So, hello my friends, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to your new favorite place on the internet. My name is Bella, and I have been annotating my books for what feels like forever, but honestly, I only started, I want to say like 7 or 8 years ago. And of course, as time passes, as I grow older, as I mature, as my opinions and likes and dislikes change over the course of time, my annotations change with me. So I don't like, I'm going to be so for real. I'm so nervous to do this video because I don't even know where to begin. There's so much to talk about, there's so much to discuss, but I will try my best. I want you to learn the different types of annotating that there are, and even if you're a beginner, even if you've never made a single pencil mark in any of the books that you've read, you can still annotate in a way that makes you feel comfortable and in a way that is still fun for you. I really just want to show you how fun annotating can be and how it doesn't have to be this extremely meticulous, super organized system. Like, you can literally just have fun with it. So with that said, I do have different levels to my annotating. So I guess let's start with level 1 of annotating, which is simply using tabs. For example, I have almond here, and as you can see, I do have a couple of tabs here, not that many, but I do have a couple, and these are color coded. So something that has not changed from my very first video is that I still use the same color coding system. I will break them down later on in the video, but that is still something that I do. When I was reading Almond, I wasn't really in the mood to whip out my annotation pouch, take out the highlighter, and I really didn't want to pause my reading, but I did have a couple of quotes that I wanted to come back to and that I wanted to remember, and that's why I used the tabs. But once you open the tabs, you realize there's nothing there. I just placed the tab, but I didn't actually underline anything. I didn't circle anything. I didn't highlight anything. I just used the power of the tab. I find that this method is really helpful when you want to have some sort of interaction with the text, but you don't necessarily want to stop your reading process entirely. This method is extra helpful when honestly I just kind of want to vibe with the book and I don't want to stop to write anything in the margins. I just kind of want to remember the quotes that I really enjoyed, so I leave a little tab here but don't necessarily write anything inside of it. This is another example, which is The Cat Who Saved Books, and I have a couple of more tabs here, but again, once you open it, there is not a single mark to be seen. So this would be level 1 to annotating, where you simply just use the tabs to remember the page or the specific phrase that called out to you while you were reading this book. Before we continue, I do think that it's important that I explain my color coding system, which is not something that I always use, but when I use these tabs, I will always fall back on the color system, or like the color coding system that I set up a couple of years ago. So these are the tabs that I use, and basically for my entire life, truly it has never really changed. Pink is for quotes and moments that I love. Orange is for funny moments. Yellow, I don't really use yellow because I don't like how it looks on my books. And honestly, I don't need that many categories. Yellow is more so whenever I want to mark my 50 pages, because I usually try to read a certain amount of pages every day, so I do mark them, and I use the yellow tab for that because that's usually the one that I have the most of. Green is for important information, or how do I even explain it? I'm getting deja vu because the first time that I did this, when I was trying to explain what the green symbolized, symbolisms, yeah, okay. Yeah, so I mostly use the green tab when I want to dig in further to the quote or the phrase that I'm underlining. If there's something specific mentioned, or if there are any literary motifs or symbolisms, metaphors that I want to dig deeper into and like write a specific meaning or explanation to them, I use green. Blue is for sad moments, obviously, and then these two purples I use interchangeably, so even though they're different colors, I do still use them for the same category, and it's basically for favorite moments, which is different from favorite phrases or quotes, because for the pink, it's just like a singular line, a singular sentence, but then favorite moments, it can be an entire chapter, it can be an entire page, it can be paragraphs. So that's the difference between those two, but they're still like favorites. This has been the color coding system that I have sworn by. I honestly don't feel like it will ever change. And I do have, I guess we're going to talk about materials now. I do have the matching highlighter colors for my color coding system. I don't know how to hold these. I do have the matching highlighters for each of my colors. So obviously blue, purple, orange, yellow, green, and pink. The highlighters that I use are the Stabilo Boss Originals, and these are the pastels because I just really like how they look in the book. I think that the other ones are a little bit too colorful and they don't really go with what I'm looking for, so I really do prefer the pastels. They do still have a little bit of bleed through, and that does influence how many times or in what books I use highlighters. But when I see that a book has really thick pages, I'm not afraid of using these highlighters because they don't have that much bleed through. I really love that they match my original color coding system because, I mean, I've used it for so many years, it's kind of ingrained into my brain. Like, I no longer have to think about it. It's just when I see these colors, I immediately know what I have to use them for. So these are the highlighters that I like using. The most important material, the most important supply that you could have while annotating is a pen. Literally, this is all you need. You don't even need fancy tabs. You don't even need colored tabs. As long as you have a pen, this is like step one. This is level one, or I guess level two if you don't want to write in your books. But these are the pens that I use, and these have worked for me for years. They write so smoothly. They don't leave any smudges. They're just perfect. They're literally perfect. These are the Pilot G2 pens. My favorite one is actually the 0.5, but the last time that I restocked, they didn't have it. So I went for an even tinier point, which was the 0.38, and this is stunning. Like, it is so thin. It is perfect for the books that have particularly small margins, and the 0.7 is a bit chunkier. It's a bit, I guess I could show you an example. This is how the 0.7 pen writes, you know? It's still really amazing. It's perfect. It's just like a tiny bit chunkier than the 0.38. Okay, I just need to show this one. We did it, fellas. We found the one piece. So there we go. This is the this is the 0.7 point.
I mean, I guess the difference isn't that noticeable, but there is still a little bit of a difference. You know, like this is darker and this is a bit thinner, obviously.
Some of you have noticed these, but I've actually started annotating with stickers now. Like, I have a couple of them. Adding these stickers to my annotation pouch has made it like 10 times more fun. So I have like an entire thing of stickers. It's really fun. Like, I have so many of them. We're just gonna flip through all of them so you guys can see the different stickers that I have. A lot of these stickers have been inspired by my own Discord emojis. So I do have like a Throne of Pages Discord, and we do have some custom emojis, and I use them a lot, you know? So that's why I feel like I can communicate more fully when using these stickers. And then these are the Luffy ones that I use whenever I find the One Piece. So these highlighters I don't use always, but when I feel like highlighting, I generally fall back on the color coding system that I've set up. So for example, I do have another example. I came prepared, okay? We have He Who Drowned the World. Now this is an interesting example because as you can see by the tabs, they're not exactly color coded. It's more like different colors of blue because I thought that it would just be a fun moment to kind of match the tabs to the book cover. But when you open these tabs, let me just open a random one. When you open these tabs, I do have highlighted sections. So even though the tabs themselves aren't color coded, once you go to those specific tabs, I have used the highlighter color that would match in my color coding system. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, here I used purple as a favorite moment. Here I used pink as a favorite quote or phrase or line, and I'm still using the blue tabs just because they match with the book cover. I didn't necessarily use the tabbing system, but I did still use the color coding with my highlighters. It's a nice way of, you know, like making your book look cool and aesthetic, I guess, but also keeping the color coding system in a way. How many times have I said color coding system? I'm so sorry. A great example of my color coding system is these two books, People We Meet on Vacation and Beach Read, both by Emily Henry. As you can see, these have been extremely, like, heavily annotated. I genuinely love these books, and I think that one of my favorite parts is the fact that every time that I've reread them, I've added new annotations. So for example, this is what I was saying. When purple is a favorite moment, and here you can see that I literally highlighted the entire page, or like I put little brackets here to symbolize that I am in fact annotating the entire page. I mean, basically Beach Read has a bunch of favorite moments, which kind of defeats the purpose of favorite, but we're not going to think about that too much. So this is what I would call my traditional annotating system, in the sense that when I was reading these, I was annotating with these tabs, and I was using each tab according to my color codes. And I, of course, also used the highlighters that matched each tab, you know, the usual. This is what I've been doing for years. It works particularly well with contemporary books and romance books and sometimes even fantasy books, but there are a couple of books where you kind of have to tweak your system a little bit. For example, we have The Bell Jar, written by Sylvia Plath. So for this one, I kind of had an inkling that I wasn't going to have a lot of funny moments. I wasn't going to have maybe a lot of moments that I loved or that I would want to go back to, you know what I mean? So I did tweak my system because I just knew that it was going to have to be different. So this is the key that I followed while I was annotating The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. As you can see, this is completely different from my usual annotating system, and I didn't even use all the colors because I didn't need to. I actually came up with this system as I was reading The Bell Jar. It's not like I knew these categories were the ones that I was going to be annotating before I even started reading the book. Sometimes annotating is an ongoing process. Sometimes you find categories as you're reading the book and not necessarily before you even started, which is okay. Like, you don't always have to start a book knowing exactly what you're going to be annotating. It can be more of, you know, it can be an organic process. It doesn't have to be clear cut right from the beginning, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to stress about this as long as you find the categories that work for you, as long as you're annotating the things that interest you. And if you want to annotate specific categories or specific, I don't know, motifs and symbolisms, then what works for you is what matters. A really nice tip or a really good reminder is that your annotations don't always have to be these super intellectual thoughts and comments. Like, it can truly just be, oh my god, I'm crying, this is killing me, I want to bash my head against the wall. Let yourself have fun while you're annotating. Don't overthink these things, because at the end of the day, these are your books. This is your reading experience, and if while you're reading this book you want to bash your head against the wall, or you love these two characters and you would give your life for them, just write that down. It doesn't always have to be this extreme, like, deep dive analysis into the text. It really doesn't. And I think that the more you let go of that notion, the more fun you can have. So I, of course, have to mention a pretty iconic book in my reading history, and honestly, something that marked a before and after in my annotation process. So I don't know if you guys know this, I don't really talk about it that much, but I did read War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I know, it's okay, like, it's okay if you don't know, because I I never even told anyone, so it's okay if you don't know. But the point is, when I was reading War and Peace, I was annotating my classics the same way that I annotate contemporary and romance books. And I thought that that would work out. Like, for example, I have The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is one of my all-time favorite classics. And as you can see, I'm still using the same tabs that I would use for a contemporary book. I honestly went to ham annotating The Picture of Dorian Gray because there is so much to discuss. I even used post-its when I needed more space than the margins gave me. This copy in itself is incredible. Like, I love it. I love what I did with it. I love how you can see my thoughts and opinions as I'm reading this book and how I felt about these characters and what was going on. I actually have quite a lot of post-its now that I'm flipping through this. It's honestly one of my favorite annotation experiences because I just had so much fun with it. And I think you can tell by the amount of annotations and by like all of the margins are filled in, and that's so beautiful. Back when I was still in the early stages of starting my classic literature journey, I kept the same annotation process that I would for any other book because I truly thought that it would work out. And when I picked up War and Peace, I still used the same tabs, as you can see. Oh, it's been so long since I last did that. It's crazy. I still used these same tabs, but I kind of had an inkling that the same categories would not work, especially because I think this has like over 500 characters. I needed my annotation system to make sense, and I needed my annotation system to help me better understand the book and to keep track of things in a way. So I did develop a separate annotation key for War and Peace, which is this one. I knew that I wasn't going to have a lot of haha moments while reading War and Peace, so I changed the orange to character analysis, which was very important for this book because this book is the characters. The characters build this book, and I think that it was really important to take my time to understand these characters and their motivations and really like the type of person that they were. As you can see, I used quite a lot of orange because there's just so much to analyze. For War and Peace, I also used the post-its. I think that I wrote a post-it, I think every 50 pages or something like that. Like I do have a couple of post-its. It was a very fruitful decision. I do not regret it whatsoever, but I did come to realize as I was reading this book, like my reading experience, it was kind of hindered because of the annotation system or process that I was following. By having these predetermined categories, I felt like I always had to be on the lookout for them. And I felt like I couldn't really let myself go when I was reading this book because I had to be hyper aware of the things that I was annotating so that I didn't miss a single thing. That's why after reading War and Peace, I kind of wanted to try a different annotation system for when I was reading classics. If it hadn't been for the experience that I had with this book, I wouldn't be annotating classics the way that I am now. And honestly, I don't think I would even love or enjoy the process of reading classic literature as much as I am if I still kept annotating like I did War and Peace. Because this is a whole other era for Bella and Throne of Pages, and let me just bring up probably one of my most annotated books. I do have to compare it to Les Mis, but I think that The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas is one of my most annotated classics. Oh my goodness. The annotation process that I followed for The Count of Monte Cristo is completely different from anything that I had ever tried before, because here, not only do I change the tabs that I'm using, but I let go of my entire system. I'm no longer only tabbing the things that I like or the things that make me laugh. I am annotating literally everything. I'm going bonkers. Every single line that I like, if there's something that makes me think, if there's something that sort of inspires a thought process in me, I immediately underline it and I'm writing in the margins. I'm not even caring about specific categories or analyzing the characters. Like, those things happen naturally as you read the book, but I didn't need a specific annotation key in order to do so. And I think that because I wasn't limited by my annotation key, I had more freedom than I had ever felt before while I was reading classic literature. And that sort of unlocked a new time for me, a new era. I am now using these tabs. Not a single one of these colors has a meaning behind it. I just use these colors however much I want. Like, if I want my book to have more yellows and reds, then I go ham on the yellows and reds. There is literally no meaning behind it. It's just a tab. For the Count of Monte Cristo, I didn't use a color system. I just let my annotations run wild. Again, I was annotating anything and everything that caught my whimsy, just anything that excited me, anything that made me think or that made me feel. I underlined it and I wrote my opinions on it. I wrote what I was feeling. So for example, here I did use my highlighters that I normally use, so pink for something that I liked and purple for a favorite moment, but I didn't use that for my entire reading experience. Do you kind of get what I'm trying to say? Like, for example, here I just used my pen. I didn't use a highlighter because sometimes when you're in the go, you don't have time to carry this with you wherever you go. You only have space for a pen, and sometimes a pen is all you need. A lot of this book I read while I was on a trip to Taiwan, and obviously I didn't take all of my annotation materials with me because I just did not have the space. That's why sometimes you see highlighters and sometimes you just see pens. The way that I annotate classics now is a lot more fun because I'm not being constantly bogged down by my own annotation system, and I feel like I can just have more fun with it. Like, really, like, truly just have a more open conversation and just have fun. There is another method of annotating for people that are still kind of easing into the idea of annotating. They're still not 100% comfortable with writing in the books and highlighting and, you know, just leaving any type of mark in their books. For the people that still want to annotate but don't want to write directly into the books, I recommend starting by using Post-its, which is actually the same way that I started. The concept is to, you know, use the Post-its and write your opinions and ideas inside of the Post-it. These Post-its are helpful, especially when the book has a lot of characters and it has a lot of things going on. This way you can keep track of everything that is going on and all of the characters and all of the important information that was given to you. Especially for fantasy books, I would write Post-its every 50 pages. That way it was easier for me to remember what was going on and the important characters and special information that I thought was going to come into play later on in the book. It's an easy way to interact with the book without writing in the book itself just yet. But trust me, I mean, this is just from my own personal experience, but the more that my own personal library grows, the more that I love the look of a well-loved book. You know what I mean? Like, I love the fact that an annotated book is quite literally a time machine. Like, every time that I flip through one of these, it's like I'm visiting the version of myself that read these books, and I'm reading her opinions, I'm reading her thoughts, I'm reading how this specific book marked her or, you know, changed the way that she thought of the world. For example, I can still pick up Crime and Punishment and I can flip through these pages and relive this experience. Obviously, it's not the same as when I first read it, but it's still fun and exciting and exhilarating to kind of have this version of yourself forever with you. It's just truly so wonderful to be able to have this part of yourself be there forever, and you can just visit these past versions of yourself and, you know, remember what you were going through when you were reading these books and remember how much these books meant to you. And I think that's just one of the most beautiful things of annotating. Like, yes, it helps you understand the story better, it helps you connect with it in a deeper sense, it invites you to have a meaningful experience while you're reading the book, but it also helps you preserve this version of yourself when you were reading it that you'll always have with you. And, you know, not to get sentimental or emotional, but that's the beauty of annotating. I did ask you guys over on my Instagram if you had any questions regarding my annotation system, my process, my materials, so I'm going to try my best to answer all of them. Do you annotate manga? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I feel like, especially because of the tabs, I actually did try to tab a manga once and it ruined the page. Like, the residue, the glue residue that the tabs have, it does something to the pages of manga and it ruins them. And I don't like that. It makes me feel awful. Even though I did try annotating my manga once, I never will again. Do past annotations not bother you when you're doing a reread? Absolutely not. I mean, sometimes, yeah, it can be a little bit cringy, but I mean, at this point in my life, I feel like I just have to embrace the cringe. You know what I mean? Like, I have so much love for 15-year-old me or 17-year-old me. I'm not about to feel bad for how emotional I got over a scene or how funny I thought I was being when I was commenting on these annotations. You know, I try to look back on these annotations with love and with understanding instead of like trying to judge myself, because I already have so much judgment from present me. I really don't need to be judging past me. So honestly, more so than bother me, I kind of love seeing past annotations because it reminds me of a moment where I loved the book so much, I literally had to stop reading just so that I could annotate and write down my thoughts, and I just think that's a beautiful thing. Would you reread a book and re-annotate it with a different system? I don't know about the different system, but I would definitely reread an annotated book and add annotations on top of those annotations, which is something that I have already done. And take it from me, it's a really fun experience. It's kind of like you're fighting with yourself at times and then also agreeing with yourself, and also like, this girl has no idea what she's talking about. It's a really fun experience. It's very wacky at times, but I would 10 out of 10 recommend it. How do you decide what to tab when reading poetry collections? I just annotate the ones that I like. It's really not that complicated. Annotating is not that complicated. It's only as complicated as you want it to be. So when I'm reading poetry, I literally just underline what I like. I mean, for sure, if I wanted to make it a more complex experience, I could develop an entire tabbing system for it, and I can be like, oh yeah, green is for motifs, yellow is for metaphors, pink is for favorite quotes, but that's not how I want to read poetry. I want to read poetry how I'm reading it now, and it's just by annotating the things that I love. And maybe the more poetry that I read, the more of a system I'm going to develop, but for now, I just annotate the things that I like, the things that sound pretty, the things that make my heart ache, the things that make me smile. Those are the things that I annotate. What do you do when you run out of a specific tab color in the middle of a book? I get another pack. That's literally all I do. That's why I always have backup tabs. Like, I always have to have at least 2 or 3 because these babies, they run out so fast. I think I went through 2 of these when I was reading Les Mis, just because of the sheer quantity of tabs that I was using. Like, I will never let a lack of tabs stop me from being my best self. How many pages can you read in an hour if you're annotating? You know what? I don't know. I've never really counted how many pages I can read in an hour and then how many pages I read if I'm annotating, but I'm guessing it's a lot less because when I'm annotating, I'm trying to connect with the book in a deeper level. I like taking my time underlining and using the brackets and circling specific words. Like, I like doing that. I have so much fun with it. And when it stops being fun, I stop it. But as long as it's fun and as long as I'm learning something, as long as I'm taking something away from this experience, I will continue to do so. How do you decide if a passage should be highlighted or underlined? It's not that I choose, it's that it chooses me. You know what I mean? Like, I just go with the flow. Like, if I feel like highlighting, I do so. If I feel like underlining, I do so. So for example, okay, another example, I recently read The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus, and at first I started underlining it. Like, as you can see, there's only underlining, there's only the use of pen. But then I started to realize there is so much that I want to annotate, and I feel like since I am maybe putting everything in a square, since I'm already using the squiggly lines, I'm using the circles, I'm using the underlining, I feel like I need another element to highlight other parts of the book. So that's when I whipped out my highlighter. So for example, with this book, I started thinking that I was only going to be underlining, like I was only going to be using my pen. But the more that I read, the more that I realized that I needed another element. I needed the highlighter to help me highlight more like specific parts and important bits that I didn't just want to get lost with all the underlining. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Girl. This is one of the best ending lines that I've ever read in my life. Like, for sure, absolutely, this will live with me forever, but that's besides the point. Another question that I get asked a lot is, how do I make my tabs look so evenly put together? Like, how do they look so good? What I started to do is, instead of putting the tabs exactly where I annotated, so for example, I underlined this bit, but I didn't put the tab there, I put it here, where there was like a little gap in between the tabs. I don't put it where I annotated. For example, this is the page that I annotated, but I put it on this side because it just made more sense. And at the end of the day, you're still going to know what you annotated because I'm underlining, I'm writing. Like, I don't need the tab to be specifically where I underlined because obviously, like, it's obvious. Were you taught how to annotate in school or was it self-taught? It was 100% self-taught. In school, they teach you that you cannot leave a single mark in your book. These books are not yours, which makes sense. Like, for sure, don't go underlining books that are not yours, especially if they're school property. The reason that I started annotating was when I was in university and they were going to give us an exam on a book that's called La Otra Penelope. I was like, if I don't highlight or if I don't write in this book, I feel like I'm not going to be ready to take this exam. Like, it was a way for me to study. That's why I started annotating. Do you write in all your books? And how do you choose which books to annotate? So I don't actually annotate every single book that I read. I do like to wait at least the first 50 pages before I properly start annotating a book because you never really know if you're going to love a book or if you're going to hate it. And obviously, after annotating in a book, it becomes harder to get rid of it or to give it away or to be able to gift it to someone. So it's happened to me a couple of times where I start annotating a book and then when I finish it, I'm like, I don't want this book. I did not like it. I wish I hadn't annotated it. Because of those experiences, I usually wait after the first 50 pages to figure out if I want to annotate a book or not. Do you flip through your annotations after you've read a book or do you do it for the aesthetic? Oh, no, I flip through all of my books constantly. Like, sometimes I'm just here in my bookshelf room and I pick up random books, especially the classics because those are the ones that are the most annotated. And I just do this because, wait, there's something inside. Oh, I was looking for this. Sometimes I just do this on my own time because I love how it feels. Not only just like this flipping, but I also like to sit down and read back on a couple of my annotations just because I am a really funny person and I love reading my annotations. I love being transported to the moment where I was reading this book and remembering how they made me feel, remembering the time that I wrote "Holy crap" on the Count of Monte Cristo. Oh, gracias. Where do you buy your tabs? I'm going to be linking both this tab and the other one that is somewhere that I cannot find right now in my description so you guys can get the same ones if you'd like. They're very cheap and they're very high quality as well, so like it's a win-win-win. They're what we call in the Dominican Republic bueno, bonito y barato. Are there themes you track in every book? No. No, I do this, but not for every book. It's more so for very specific books and, you know, it depends on the type of reading experience that you want to have. How do you get such straight lines? I cannot tell you. I think it's just years and years of experience. I don't think that they're as straight as you guys think they are. So this is like a good example of a straight line. And then right underneath it, right underneath it, you can see it's a little bit squiggly. So I still have my squiggly line moments, you know, like they're not all going to be straight. For example, this one, like you can kind of tell my hand kind of lost strength there. I did used to use a ruler, but as you can see, or hopefully you noticed, I no longer have a ruler in my annotation pouch because, like, who cares? I'm so sorry, but like, I don't care if my lines are straight. I used to care, trust me, I used to care. I just realized sometimes you're in the frenzy of reading the book and you're really into the scene. You don't want to whip out a ruler and try to get the most perfect line. You just want to underline it and you want to circle it and you want to squiggly line it. Like, you just want, like, you are so desperate to interact with the text that you no longer care how straight your line is. Sometimes I get a straight line and I'm like, damn, that's a really good pulse. But then others, I get squiggly ones and I'm like, oh, that's cute. How do you remember what you want to annotate when you are out without your supplies? So this is a trick. I mean, it's also like a pretty basic one, but if no one's ever told you, I'm here to help you. So when I am out and about, so for example, when you're in waiting rooms or when you're at social gatherings and you've brought your book with you, but you didn't bring a pen or tabs or highlighters, you don't even have a bookmark. How do I remember what I want to annotate? I take pictures. I take pictures with my phone of the pages that I want to annotate. And if it's a very specific phrase in the same like photos application, I underline the specific phrase that I want to annotate. And then when I come back home, I look through my pictures and I just, pass the annotations into my physical copy. That's how I do it. And sometimes when I can't take photos because maybe your storage is full or you just can't, I open my notes app and I write down the page number that I want to annotate. So there you go. That's how I remember what I want to annotate when I don't have my supplies with me. Don't you think annotating while reading significantly reduces your reading speed? Absolutely. I don't see why that's any reason not to do it, because I don't read books to read them as fast as possible. I read books so that I can take something away from them, so that I can learn something new, so that something inside me changes, so that my own opinions are contrasted with the authors. I read to learn, I read to have fun, I read to experience different lives, and why would I ever want to speed through that experience, Honestly, annotating helps you slow down, and that's something that I love. In this world where you're constantly being told that you have to consume as much media as you possibly can, like there are so many books, so little time, you have to read everything, you have to skim read, you have to skip the descriptors, you have to skip chapters that you're not feeling, like, oh, this chapter is too long, I'll just skim read it and probably understand the rest of the book. Like, no. Like, annotating forces you to slow down, and it forces you to think of what you're reading. It forces you to take a break, slow down, take a breather, and truly experience what you're reading. It's kind of amazing that in this world where you're constantly being told that you have to do everything right now, right then and there, or it's not going to matter, annotating reminds you that that's not the point at all. You need to slow down. You need to have meaningful interactions, meaningful connections with the media that you're connecting with. Otherwise, what's the point? Literally, what is the point? What thoughts do you jot down? Because I always feel like it's not smart or important enough. This is another question that I got quite a lot because lo que como te digo, I felt like this too. It's so crazy because all of the questions that I got is things that I would also question of other people that I saw annotating. I feel like I'm not smart enough to annotate. I feel like my thoughts and opinions as I'm reading these books are just not interesting or entertaining, or I don't have anything important to say. But what you don't understand is that everything that you have to say is important. It really is. Every thought, every feeling, everything that you feel and think while you're reading a book is important. And it's important because it's coming from you. And that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. Gatekeep, girl boss, gaslight, absolutely. This annotation is right next to this post-it that says, although Esther has more or less recovered, she can still feel the bell jar hovering over her like a threat. Her madness does not obey reason, and though she feels like she's escaped it, she does not believe that this represents a you know what I mean? Like, both can exist at the same time, and it's okay. You can have fun with gatekeeping and girl bossing and gaslighting, and then you can also, in the next page, be like, she's still inside the bell jar. Somebody asked what my most annotated book was, and then they said, in parentheses, War and Peace doesn't count. The thing is, War and Peace wouldn't even be my answer, because yes, it is pretty heavily annotated, but I think that the book that takes the cake, you know what, the way that I don't even know, it's in between The Count of Monte Cristo or Les Mis. These are my two contenders. Which one do you think seems more, I don't even know how to show this to you. So this is Les Mis. I will never count how many tabs this has because it's just an astronomical amount. And then this is how many Count of Monte Cristo has. Please leave in the comments below your answer. Which one do you think is more heavily annotated? Just to recap, there are different levels to annotating. There are different difficulties. There are different methods for sure. All you have to do is choose the one that you are most comfortable with and that most aligns with the type of reading experience that you want to have. My annotation system varies depending on the type of book that I am reading. I'm not going to be annotating a contemporary book the same way that I would The Cat of Monte Cristo. Different types of books require different types of annotation systems. So hopefully by me talking about my different annotation methods, it helps you find the one that's best for you. And maybe it'll even motivate you to try annotating for yourself. If you've been hesitant to try it out, but you've kind of been curious what this annotation thing is all about, hopefully this video has answered some questions for you. And again, if you have any other ones, feel free to leave them down below and I will do my best to answer each and every one of them. I really hope that you found this video helpful and thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I also have a Patreon where I post exclusive content. I host readathons, reading sprints, and a monthly book club. And I also post exclusive annotation flip-throughs of some of my most beloved books. So if that is something that sounds interesting to you, the link is down below as always. I would love to have you join my found family. Once again, I really hope that you enjoyed, and now, I need to go put these books back where they belong, which is not something that I'm looking forward to because, like, girl, these are so many books, and I got them from so many different parts of my bookshelf, so that's gonna be an interesting thing to do. I hope you're having a fantastic day whenever you're watching this. I love you very much. I appreciate you, and if you haven't heard it lately, I am proud of you, and you're doing an incredible job, so keep going. I'll see you next time. Bye!
Hey Jimmy, you nice, keep going.